Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another video. Welcome back to Monster Hunter Rise, and today I'm going to be bringing you my hunting horn guide. Now, ever since the release of Monster Hunter Rise demo, I've seen a lot of discussion on the new hunting horn. And yes, I'm calling it the new hunting horn because it is the weapon that has received the biggest overhaul in all of the weapons in Monster Hunter Rise. And this is considered both a good thing and a bad thing depending on who you ask. A lot of people are happy that the weapon is now easier to get into. A lot of people are not happy because they consider that the hunting horn has basically become a mindless button masher. Now, I'm here to tell you guys that in my opinion, I do not agree with that statement at all. I think that the previous iteration of the hunting horn was a weapon that was very hard to get into and way harder to truly master, whereas the current iteration of the hunting horn is a lot more forgiving when it comes to just getting into the weapon, but I still consider it to be a hard weapon to truly master, to play at its maximum efficiency. But anyway, that's just my opinion, and I'm very curious to hear from hunting horn mains out there who've played previous iterations of the hunting horn. Let me know what you think about the weapon as it is right now that we've had like a couple of weeks to actually play the game. Let me know what you think about this weapon in Monster Hunter Rise. But anyway, let's begin as per usual with the basics. I have all of the default switch skills equipped. If you guys have been messing around with the switch skills of the hunting horn, the default ones are Overhead Smash, Melody Mode Performance, and Earthshaker. Now, let's get started with draw attacks. So, how do you draw your hunting horn? Well, basically you press X. And you're like, okay, so that's the standing still draw. You know, you just draw your weapon, doesn't really play a note, doesn't really do anything. But here's the interesting thing about the hunting horn. Even if you are moving and you press X in the direction in order to perform an attack, it still just draws the weapon. Now, this is actually a really good thing, even though some people might think, oh, so it doesn't actually have a draw attack? That's kind of weird, like all of the weapons have their little draw attack. But no, this is a good thing because it allows you to select which attack you want to go into, or in this case, which note do you want to play right from the get-go. Because a lot of times in previous Monster Hunter games, you would draw into X and it would destroy the melody that you were trying to create. And you guys are like, whoa, melodies, notes, what are we talking about here? Because I know that some of you guys maybe never picked up a hunting horn before, right? But we'll talk about melodies and notes. Just be aware that when you draw with X, it's actually not going to perform an attack, so that you can then choose which attack you want to perform with the weapon, which will then, you can choose which note and all of that stuff. Now, there is, however, another draw attack to this weapon, which is by pressing ZR. That's going to go into Perform. And while we're on it, I might as well just talk about Perform. So Perform is actually a really, really cool ability. You can use it as a draw attack, and it gives you your first buff, which is self-improvement. Now, this is a buff that you definitely want to have at all times, because if you notice, if you scroll back in the footage earlier while I was walking with the weapon, you'll notice that right now we're walking a lot faster. But not just that. If you have self-improvement on, the hunting horn doesn't care about where you hit. So you can hit heavily armored areas of the monsters and you're not going to bounce off. So you get to move faster and you get to basically hit however you want. So self-improvement should always be the first thing that you do right before you engage a monster. You want to keep that buff up. It is shown above your health gauge in the form of that little music symbol, the green one. Now, I know that there's already like 3 symbols on there because we've already played a couple of notes and it's already like starting to buff us up, but we'll talk about each and every one of those. And do remember that each hunting horn is going to have different melodies. So before you actually choose the hunting horn that you want to craft, you might want to have a look at the hunter's guide in the weapon controls, because you have all of the melody effects listed for the hunting horn in there, so that if you don't know, okay, what does this particular music do? Usually each music is pretty self-explanatory, but as you are crafting it, if you come across a buff that you don't know, just go hunter's notes, weapon controls, melody effects, and here you can see literally all of the buffs available in every hunting horn in the game. And so that will allow you to basically decide which hunting horn do I want to use, right? So for our specific hunting horn, like all hunting horns have self-improvement. That's like a buff that every single hunting horn has. In our hunting horn, we have Tremors negated, Attack and Affinity up, and Sonic Wave. And I'll talk more about each of these things as we move forward. But now let's talk about the basic attacks of the weapon. So I told you guys about Perform, which is the ZR attack that also gives you your self-improvement buff and should be kind of like your opener on most monsters, like the very first attack that you do in order to get your self-improvement buff and all that jazz. What I didn't tell you about Perform is that it also comes with invincibility frames. So if you time it just right, you'll be able to avoid attacks, avoid roars, and still be able to counterattack the monster. But, again, it is a bit of a tight window, but if you can get it just right, you'll be able to counter a lot of monster attacks, so that is definitely something that you want to practice. Now, the hunting horn has two melody modes, which we will talk about as we move forward through this, and that is melody mode performance and melody mode echo. And as I told you at the start of this video, we're currently in melody mode performance. And why am I bringing this up now? Because the perform attack is different, and you only get invincibility frames if you're doing this in melody mode performance. Okay, let's keep that in mind. And now let's move on to other attacks. So X, what does X do? You get your left swing, your multi-crush, and your forward smash. If you input a direction before doing X, it's going to change the order of the combo. You're going to go into the forward smash first, then into the left swing, and then into the multi-crush. Now multi-crush, pretty powerful. Forward smash, very good to positioning yourself, because like look at the reach of forward smash, right? You move a little bit and you still get a lot of reach. And left swing just does damage. Like left swing does more damage from what I can tell than the forward smash. But naturally, you have to be standing stationary in order to do it. And ultimately, multi-crush does the most damage of all of these three attacks, because it's a 3-hit combo. And I know that we kind of missed one of the hits there, but multi-crush is definitely the one that you kind of want to go for. Left squash does also a lot of damage, and the forward smash is the one that you use to position yourself. The thing about the hunting horn is that every single attack flows into itself seamlessly, so there's no like combos that you can extend in a way or in a different way. There are multiple combos that you can do with the weapon, but basically anything that you do can be a combo. So like I can sit here, spam X, and then if I want to, I can spam A, and it'll still just like kind of like seamlessly flow. I can spam X plus A, and it will continue flowing into more. Like, look, the numbers just keep racking up. And this is why people say that, oh, it's a button masher now, because you can just combo everything into everything. But that is not quite the case. And when we get to the combos section of the, combo section of this guide, hopefully you guys will understand why. But anyway, those were the X attacks. Now, when it comes to A attacks, if you press forward and A, you get a crush. And the crush, very much like the X forward smash, is going to be an attack that allows you to position yourself. You know, you get a little bit of positioning in there. If you just hold down, if you just press A instead, you get the right swing. So the right swing also deals more damage than the crush. Even though, you know, I'm hitting different parts of the monster, that's why sometimes it looks a little bit weird. And we also have affinity right now, so sometimes we get crits. But yeah, just be aware that in general, the right swing will deal more damage than the crush. But the crush allows you to position yourself a little bit better for the monster attacks. And then finally, the other attack is X plus A. Now, if you just press X plus A from idle, you get backward strike. And backward strike is one of the hardest hitting attacks of the hunting horn. So, you know, if you just land it right, bam, it's going to be a lot of damage. And it hits in two spots. So like if the monster is standing right in front of you, you'll hit it coming up. If the monster is standing behind you, you can hit it coming down. But it will only hit each monster once. Because like, yeah, I tried positioning myself in ways to like get a double hit off of this. But no, you usually only get one hit. It's just one of those things, if there's a monster behind you, you can smack it like so. If there's a monster in front of you, you can also smack it like so. And it deals a lot of damage. But if you press forward and X and A, you get the overhead smash. Doesn't deal quite as much damage, but still, it keeps you static and it smashes the monster right in its face. And if you spam, you can also get the double swing. So you can also go for overhead smash into double swing. Now the double swing I think is going to be a better skill to use, like if you're using high elemental damage or something like that, because just for sheer raw damage, the overhead smash as well as the backward smash or backward strike, whatever you want to call it, those deal the highest amount of damage. And this is one of the cool things about the hunting horn that I just told you, is that you can chain all of these attacks together. So why is it important that I'm telling you, like, okay, so here's an X attack, here's an A attack, here's another one? It's because you can change the direction of the combos that you do in these attacks, and it's important for you to perform different notes. Now, it's time to get into the concept of notes. So how do notes work? Well, if you're in performance mode, basically playing any note twice, that means doing the same attack twice, is going to give you a buff. So now if you look to the top, right above your health gauge, you'll notice that right now we don't have any buffs because we've just been spamming X and A. Now X and A is Sonic Wave. It's not necessarily a buff, this is actually an attack. So every time that you do X and A twice, notice that there's an explosion. That explosion is a Sonic Wave. And it deals damage, deals exhaust, and it's a really fun thing, which is one of the reasons why I like Sonic Wave so much. I usually like having, see it deal 18 damage right there. It'll probably also deal 18 damage in the back here. Yeah, because it doesn't care about where you're hitting. It's basically true damage. But yeah, this is one of the reasons why I like having Sonic Wave, even though the Hunting Horn has some attacks that actually just deal Sonic Wave by themselves, even if you don't have it. But I just like having it as a note. But anyway, if you look above your health right now, you'll notice we don't have any buffs whatsoever. So like I said, one of the most important things to do with a Hunting Horn, keep your self-improvement up. That is the ZR attack. So right now, right above us, you'll see that little, above our health, you'll see that little green musical symbol. That means we have self-improvement. If we hit X twice, we now have attack up and affinity up. And if we hit A twice, we now have tremors negated as well. So, this is when a monster stomps the ground, you no longer get affected by it. So all of those buffs are active. And an important thing, there's two ways to track this, right? If you look above your health, you can see those buffs active. And the reason I'm pointing you towards that is because if there's a Hunting Horn user in your party and you're not the Hunting Horn user in your party, you'll see those same buffs above your character's health. And that way you can track whether or not you're getting buffed by a Hunting Horn player. If you're the Hunting Horn player, however, you can look towards the explanation of the abilities, which is right below your stamina gauge. You can see right there it says self-improvement, attack and affinity up, tremors negated. That's kind of like your guide to which notes do what. So the X is the blue attack. That'll give you your attack and affinity up, so doing it twice will just refresh that buff. The A is your tremor negated, so hitting A twice is going to give you tremors negated. And X and A is Sonic Wave, so doing it twice is going to do a Sonic Wave. Now keep in mind what I told you at the start of this video, and that is that different Hunting Horns have different buffs. So if you have a different Hunting Horn from the one that I have, your buff bar is going to look completely different because there's going to be something there like maybe earplugs, maybe, sonic barrier, maybe something else, right? So it's completely up to you which buffs you want to bring to the team. As a matter of fact, there are even Hunting Horns that can do health recovery. So you can basically heal your teammates by using those Hunting Horns. So keep those things in mind. But now that we've talked about this, I figured this would be a good time to explain the two different melody modes. So we've been talking about melody mode performance, which is just like you do any attack twice and that plays the melody. But there's another mode, if you go to the switch skills, that gives you melody mode echo. Melody mode echo is going to work in a different way. Notice that it no longer shows you your buffs, with the self-improvement, attack, and affinity up. It doesn't show you with two notes. It just shows one note. You guys are like, okay, so, if I hit the X button twice, no buff. You don't get attack and affinity up anymore. So the way it works now is you only have to play the notes once, but you have to follow them up with the attack that we previously had, which was called Perform. However, because we're in a different melody mode, it is now called Chord. And that gives you the buff. So the way to get buffs now is basically play a note once, hit ZR, and you get your buff. And you guys are like, okay, so what's the advantage? Because the other one I can just keep attacking. This one almost feels like I have to interrupt my flow to press ZR. But that's the thing. You don't really interrupt any flow because everything flows together when it comes to the hunting horn. So like I can press A, ZR, and that's still a combo. The thing that you got to keep in mind is you have to be a little bit more mindful about keeping your buffs up and instead of just like spamming your attacks, right? And the advantage of that, in my opinion, is that you get a really offensive move in the form of Chord. I mean, just look at that. That is just such a beastly looking move. I love it. As a matter of fact, right now I'm indecisive when it comes to which one I like most, Melody Mode Performance or Melody Mode Echo. Because when I first heard of Melody Mode Echo, I was like, well, I mean, you know, Performance is much more straightforward and it just seems like it would be overall better. But with Echo, I get this beast of an attack that I just kind of like, oh, I kind of want to play Echo. Even though Perform, you get the invincibility frames. Remember I told you guys about this. If you're in Melody Mode Performance and you use Perform, there's invincibility frames. On this one, you get this beastly attack. So that's kind of like the main difference, and you have to be more aware of which buffs you want to play when. Like you can also get Sonic Wave. You no longer get Sonic Waves by just doing, you know, the attack twice. You now have to go and you have to do the Chord thing. But anyway, I'm going to switch us back to performance mode because that's kind of like how most players will start. You will most likely only have performance mode available to you at the start, and then eventually you'll unlock Melody Mode Echo, and then you can play with Melody Mode Echo. But for the rest of this tutorial, I'm going to be using the performance mode just for the sheer fact that that is what people begin with. So I want to talk about another special thing that you can do with the hunting horn, and that is the Magnificent Trio. So, what is the Magnificent Trio? Well, if you look at our weapon gauge right now, you know, besides the notes and whatnot and all the crazy stuff that shows up in there, you'll notice that right now there's an ability there that says ZR plus X. That is the Magnificent Trio attack, and if you press ZR plus X, you're going to get this, which is a really fun attack that is also very convenient because it gives you every single buff. Every time you do Magnificent Trio, it refreshes all of the buffs in your hunting horn, which is very, very nice. So how do you get to Magnificent Trio? You just have to play each note one time. So remember, if you want to get the buffs individually, you press the notes twice. Like if I want to refresh Attack Affinity up, you go X into X, boom, and that played it. Notice how there's a note symbol that shows up around your character every time he plays a note. So like if I do this once, nothing happens. If I do it a second time, note symbol, right? So that is how you play individual notes. For the Magnificent Trio, though, you're going to play all of them. And you just need to hit each note once. So we already have an X note because we've been playing a lot of X's. Now I can press A. And now if I press XA, notice how the symbol for Magnificent Trio shows up again, and then you can go ZRX. Now do keep in mind that the Magnificent Trio attack is a high commitment attack, and it is not something that you want to just be doing willy-nilly, particularly if you're playing in high rank, because monsters will punish that attack and you won't even get the benefits of it unless you play it all the way. Because, you know, if you're doing a Magnificent Trio and you get interrupted, you're not really going to get all of your buffs. So keep that in mind. But having said that, it does mean that in a lot of situations, you want to play each note at least once. It does not have to be in sequence, though, so you can go like, oh, I'm just going to do X, X and A, X, X and A, and it's just like one big jumble of notes, a couple of extra X's, you know, and now A's, not X and A's. Just notice I haven't played a single red note, which is the A note, and that's why the trio is not up. But at any point in time, I just play this, boom, trio is active. So it's like you can play the notes in any order that you want, in any way that you want. You just have to make sure that at some point you hit each note once, and that unlocks Magnificent Trio, which is pretty damn sweet. Now, There is another thing that you can follow up the Magnificent Trio with. So let me just activate it again. Oh wait, did I? Actually, I messed it up. I didn't press X, we'll say. But anyway, we activated the Magnificent Trio. And the thing that you can follow up the Magnificent Trio with is Infernal Melody. And if you guys notice, right next to our sharpness gauge, there's a little pulsing thing with the symbol of the hunting horn. That means that the Infernal song is actually charged. The way you charge it is just by hitting the monster with attacks. It charges up. But when that thing is charged, it means that you can follow up a Magnificent Trio with another ZR attack. So you can go Magnificent Trio, and then you press ZR, and you'll do this. Boom. It'll spin around, deal a ton of damage, and it gives you an additional buff that gives you a bunch of attack. But this buff does not last as long as your regular buffs. So usually you want to save that for when there's like a down on the monster, or you have like a really big opening that you can really punish a monster, because you're going to be dealing significantly more damage. But look, it's already gone. The Infernal Melody is already gone. It ended just now. And now if you look at that gauge that was previously pulsing, it is empty. But if we start hitting the monster, it starts filling up. And the more attacks you hit it with, particularly stuff like Magnificent Trio, it starts filling up. You can see it's filling up with purple right now. So, you know, just be aware of that. And when you get a chance, you're doing your Magnificent Trio, you might be able to follow it up with the Infernal Song, which is going to increase your damage significantly. But that's kind of like your Magnificent Trio, your Infernal Song, your basic combos. Now, let's talk about some of these Silkbind skills, shall we? So the first Silkbind skill we're going to be using is the slide beat, and that is ZL plus X. Now that's a really cool attack. Another important thing about this particular attack is that it is also going to give you your self-improvement buff. So if for whatever reason you just need to open up on a monster and the monster's doing an attack, or he's about to roar, like, you know, sometimes certain monsters will roar the second they get to you, you can actually just draw your weapon and go into slide beat, and you will get hyper armor. So you still get damage even if the monster attacks you, but he won't stop you. So you'll get hyper armor, and you will get your self-improvement buff at the end of doing slide beat, which is a pretty sweet deal if you ask me. It is a really, really powerful ability. Like, this reminds me a lot of the switch axe skill, the Invincible Gambit, because, you know, you can basically aim it anywhere you want. You're going to charge right at the monster. You're going to get your self-improvement. You're going to be able to do it to avoid roars or avoid attack, you know, monsters that are really pesky and are just constantly coming at you with everything they got. You can basically power through them using this attack, which is really, really good. And then you can follow it up with anything that you want, really. Like, you can go from here into doing an X combo, because like I explained to you guys, everything just kind of flows together with the hunting horn. So, you know, and then you can go Magnificent Trio, Infernal Melody. I mean, you guys get the idea. And this is one of the reasons why some people call it a button masher, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that when we get to the combos. Now, the other Silkbind art that you have is the Earthshaker, which is ZL plus A. And this is one of my favorite animations in the game. It's not the favorite animation, but it is one of. Because what it does is basically it's going to put a spike inside the monster, and then it's going to string the, you know, your character just goes like, you know, like a rocker. It's going like, wow! And the melody is going to explode the monster's face. They should call it the face melter, to be honest. Like, look at that. Bow. It's just so incredibly stylish. I love it. And it does a ton of damage. So Earthshaker, very satisfying to use. However, it does cost 2 wire bugs. And the recovery on those bugs, as you can see, is pretty damn long. Unlike your slide beat, which just costs 1 wire bug, and the recovery is actually reasonably faster. So Earthshaker is something that, you know, you really want to make sure that you don't miss. Okay, you don't want to just do this and then miss. So use this when a monster is downed or something like that. Like, potentially the monster is down and you're like, oh man, I can do like a Magnificent Trio, follow that with an Infernal Melody, and then follow that up with an Earthshaker. Yes, that would be the way to do it. either way, it is just brutally satisfying, and I really, really, really like the Earthshaker. But anyway, let's talk about some of the switch skills. Now, the first switch skill that we're going to be getting is actually going to be replacing the overhead smash of X+A. If you see right there, we have that overhead smash. Well, instead of that, you can get Melodic Slap. So you can basically come up to your chest here, change switch skill into Melodic Slap. That's actually going to change the overhead smash into the Melodic Slap. And you guys are like, The difference between Melodic Slap and overhead smash is that overhead smash is going to deal more damage. Okay, it's going to deal more damage, and it has less animation commitment. So there's much bigger animation commitment when it comes to this Melodic Slap, right? So the deal is the Melodic Slap has a bigger KO component to it. So you can stun things easier using Melodic Slap if you have a big enough opener. However, there's a lot of animation commitment there, which is why I think for most situations, overhead smash is going to end up being what you want, because this is a really long animation, a lot less damage, but a lot more stun. So it all depends on, like, what are you trying to do? Are you playing against a monster that is particularly vulnerable to being stunned? It's got an easy head to hit, and and it's got a lot of openings where you can just abuse that. Sure, Melodic Slap is going to be great, but for most of the situations, I think that the overhead smash is going to serve you better because it has less animation commitment. So now let's swap that back and have a look at the other switch skill, which is a little bit different. That is, you're going to replace your Earthshaker with Bead of Resonance. Now, when it comes to Bead of Resonance, which you can do by pressing ZL and A, it is going to place down this blue bead in the ground. And what this blue bead is going to do is it is going to repeat every melody that you do with your hunting horn. Now, notice that I swapped hunting horns for this particular part of the tutorial because this hunting horn has different songs. So if you look at the songs available, you'll notice it has self-improvement, which, like I said, every hunting horn has defense up, sonic wave, and stamina use reduced. What it doesn't have is attack up. And that's the really cool thing about Bead of Resonance. It doesn't matter what songs your hunting horn has, it is going to give you attack up whenever you play a note. And not only that, it is also going to play a sonic wave, which deals damage if it happens to be in range of any target. And it is going to also kind of like, think of it as a Wi-Fi booster. It's going to boost the buff that you do with your hunting horn. So basically, if there was a player here by the bead, he would receive whatever buffs I would do. He would also receive attack up. So boom. See, we were far away from the bead. Actually, the bead was already down. So let's do another one. So any player that was close to that, he would receive the defense up, and he would also receive attack up, which comes from the bead, not from the hunting horn, which is pretty cool. And on top of it, it also deals the sonic wave. So if you notice, whenever we play a note, there's like a couple of waves that seem to come out of it. If we put it close to the monster, you'll see that it deals damage. And I'll take that opportunity to let you guys know that this thing also deals damage when you place it down. And interestingly enough, it doesn't appear to be impact damage like the rest of the hunting horn attacks. I'd almost say that this is severing damage, but just notice it. Boom. And there it is. Now we've placed the bead right on top of the monster. And now if we do defense up, boom. We get a little bit of a, you see the 18 damage on the monster. That's from the sonic wave. So you get the sonic wave damage. It also does the skills that you do, the songs that you do, and it gives you attack up. So in a way, it's useful if your hunting horn does not have attack up and you want to provide your group with attack up, or you want to have attack up yourself, but you are giving up Earthshaker. So that's going to be a decision that you have to make for yourself. So gives attack up, gives you sonic waves, and basically does your buffs multiple times. It's also very useful if you have like a healing hunting horn, because it is going to repeat your heals. See, some hunting horns have like health recovery up or something like that, and that is going to give a little heal to your party members. If they happen to be close to the bead, they'll be healed by the hunting horn and by the bead itself. which makes it a very interesting addition to the hunting horn arsenal, but at the same time, it is somewhat niche. So keep that in mind, because you are giving up one of the hardest hitting moves of the hunting horn for something that's a little bit more support-like in nature, but it definitely has its uses. Okay, so when it comes to combos with the hunting horn, do keep in mind that if you're playing melody mode performance, there's always the ZR to kind of get you out of trouble. So if you're in the middle of a combo but you're about to get hit, you can always just like hit that ZR button to go and get some invincibility frames and potentially avoid that damage. So feel free to interweave ZR into the middle of these combos because, you know, it's not going to break your combo. It's going to give you some invincibility frames, and at the same time, you can just keep on dishing out damage. But ultimately, like, I feel like with the hunting horn, one of your biggest objectives is to get the notes up as fast as you can, like one of each, so that you unlock your magnificent trio in order to be able to do it whenever you have an opportunity. So that's kind of like what I focused on when it came to combos. Now, one of the combos that deals a lot of damage is actually if you're able to stay stationary, so not pressing the L button, you can go X into A into X plus A. That's going to dish out a significant amount of damage in only 3 hits and instantly unlock you to go into Magnificent Trio. And in our case, we can even follow it up with an Infernal Melody because we charged it up enough. So that is already a beast of a combo to begin with. But naturally, that doesn't really help you with positioning because you have to be standing still, and then you go X, A, X plus A, lots and lots of damage, but, you know, no positioning help. Now, another one that helps you with positioning and is maybe a little bit faster is if you use a directional input to get the forward smash from X, and then immediately follow it up with A and X plus A, and you'll get something like this. So that's a little bit of a faster combo and also helps you with positioning and kind of like keeping up with the monster while also dishing out a decent amount of damage and giving you the 3 notes to then go into Magnificent Trio. Now that combo did use a move that I hadn't really shown you yet, which was the kick up. Now basically the kick up is performed whenever you press A after any of the smashing attacks of the hunting horn. So for instance, if you go forward and X plus A, you can instantly press A to get a kick up, which reduces the recovery animation of those attacks a little bit and gives you an attack to follow it up with, which is still kind of like better than dodging, depending on the situation. So if you don't have to dodge to recover from an attack, you can recover from that attack by pressing A. Again, only attacks which slam down on the monster. So Crush, you can also... Crush, unfortunately, you can't because it is the A attack. I was about to say you can also do it for Crush with A, but no. But every other slam down attack, you can follow it up with the A button to do a kick up. And that opens you up to some more interesting things. So for instance, if I do X plus A and then do a kick up, that is going to put me in a position to do the crushing attack on X. So the other attack would be forward, X plus A, and X. That gives you the multi-crush. So that's another one of the combos that you can do. Then there's also the crushing with A followed up by the multi-crush with X and X plus A for an overhead smash. And this is what I was talking about when I said at the start that it is an easier weapon to get into, but it is still a weapon with a lot of depth because, yeah, you can button mash and you can spam buttons and whatever, but you're not going to be as efficient as someone who has actually mastered like a proper sequence of combos. Like I just showed you some of them. There's another one that you can do for a considerable amount of damage. Let me just actually sharpen because things are looking pretty gnarly for our hunting horn here. But there's another one that you can do. And also, let me get some buffs up by doing Magnificent Trio. There's another one that you can do, which is you press X plus A followed by X, and this is going to give you a lot of damage. And then into a crush, into a multi-crush. Just pretty damn nice, if you ask me. So, you know, this is all about figuring out which one of these combos works best for you. Now, I want you guys to keep in mind that there's plenty of more depth to the hunting horn, and there's usually a lot more depth to a lot of the weapons than something that I can give you in a guide that is this brief. Like, a lot of people spend hundreds upon hundreds of hours truly mastering their weapon of choice, which is one of the reasons why my Gunlance guide is called Ultimate Gunlance Guide, and all of the other ones following it are just called regular guides, because I consider that this is a guide to get you started, but in order to master the weapon, you're going to require a lot of practice. And a couple of additional notions I feel are important to the hunting horn is that it's not just about hitting the monster, it is also about managing your buffs, not just for yourself, but also for your party. And the weapon is great solo, don't get me wrong. This is not a support weapon like some people have you believe, oh, it's just a support weapon. No, just because it has buffs, and it actually buffs other people and makes them more efficient at dealing damage, does not mean that it is strictly a support weapon. But it is a portion of the weapon that you should consider. So for instance, if you see somebody cart, it means that when they come back, they're not going to have any buffs. So you can be considerate and just be like, okay, so this guy just carted, he's coming back into the fight. Let me just do 2 quick X attacks, boom. And now he's got affinity up and attack up. Let me just do 2 quick tremors negated. And now he's got tremors negated as well. You know, just like rebuff people as they go back and forth. And naturally, if you have the opening to do Magnificent Trio, do that. And whenever there's an opening big enough that justifies you actually using the Infernal Melody, you want to make sure that you pop that Infernal Melody as well, so that everybody can deal additional damage to the monster, yourself included. So by buffing yourself, you're also buffing everybody else. But that's the hunting horn, and I gotta tell you, it is amazingly fun, and I initially thought that I was just going to want performance mode, but to be honest, I've been more and more wanting to get into melody mode echo for that sweet chord attack. I just really I like how aggressive it is, like BAM! And this thing's got to have a lot of stunning damage, because usually stuff that comes from attacks that go from down up, those attack like uppercut type attacks, those tend to have the most KO, which I don't know about, you know, movement values and whatnot, because I don't really concern myself too much with that stuff. But I don't know, there's just something about this chord attack that makes me want to play more and more in echo mode. So yeah, I don't know. But let me know how you guys feel about the hunting horn. Let me know what you guys thought about this guide. If you enjoyed it, if it was useful for you, hit it up with a like. If you did not like it, hit it up with a dislike. Feedback is important. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.